The rain began just after dusk, spitting at first, then drumming hard enough to blur the street lamps into pale smears. Detective Rowan Price hated rain, not for the wet, but for the way it muffled sound, made things disappear. 3 nights ago, Alara Quinn, 27, had walked out of her apartment at precisely 8:43 p.m. Security footage showed her stepping into the lobby, hair in a messy bun, wearing a dark green coat and carrying a satchel. She smiled at the doorman. He waved back. She pushed open the glass door and stepped into the storm. She has not been seen since. Her car remained in its parking space, phone on her kitchen counter, purse on the sofa, the satchel she'd carried gone. The case was messy before Rowan even touched it. Alara's friends insisted she wasn't the type to run off. Her landlord swore she'd been happy, chatty, even. But her sister, Mara, claimed Alara had been receiving anonymous letters for months, plain envelopes slipped under her door. Mara had never seen the contents. Alara burned them. Now, as Rowan sat in his unmarked car across from the Quinn building, the rain streaked his windshield, bending the light like warped glass. He'd been watching for hours because the doorman had said something odd. Every night since she left, someone's come by and stood across the street, just standing, not moving, sometimes for hours. Rowan had half dismissed it until he saw him. A figure in a hooded raincoat stood beneath the flickering light of a phone booth. The hood was drawn tight. The man, if it was a man, was unnervingly still, head angled toward Alara's building. Rowan reached for the door handle. By the time his boots hit the sidewalk, the figure had moved, not fast, but gone from the booth in seconds, slipping into the maze of side streets. Rowan followed, splashing through puddles, pulse kicking up, but each corner turned revealed only wet pavement and receding echoes. When he finally stopped, breathing hard, he found himself in a narrow alley that reeked of rust and rain. A cardboard box sat against the wall. Inside, a single plain envelope, edges warped by damp. It was unsealed. Inside was a photograph, black and white, grainy. It showed Alara, hair loose, looking over her shoulder, smiling faintly. She was standing in the very alley Rowan was in now, and behind her in the blurred background was the hooded figure. No date, no note. The next morning, Rowan returned to the precinct. The photograph was already gone from the evidence locker. No sign of forced entry, no trace on the security logs. That night, Rowan received an envelope at his own apartment door. Inside, another photograph. This one showed him, taken less than an hour ago, standing in the rain outside Alara's building. He hadn't seen anyone take it. The phone on his kitchen counter began to ring. A landline. He didn't have a landline. He let it ring until it stopped. When he checked his peephole, the hallway outside his apartment was empty, except for the wet footprints leading away from his door. The footprints outside Rowan's apartment faded by morning, washed into pale smudges by the storm that hadn't let up all night. He told himself they could have belonged to anyone, maintenance, a neighbor, but the lie didn't stick. He counted them before going to bed. 14 prints, only leading away, none toward his door. By mid-morning, he was back in front of the Quinn building, nursing a burnt coffee and a growing headache. Rain beaded on his coat, slid down his collar, dampened the edge of the folder under his arm. Inside were the photographs, the one from the alley, the one of himself. He studied them for hours last night, searching for digital artifacts, reflections, anything to suggest they were doctored. Nothing. Across the street, a bus idled, exhaling gray steam. Rowan scanned the windows automatically, half expecting to see the hooded figure staring back. Nothing. Just a handful of commuters hunched over their phones. Mara Quinn appeared in the lobby at 10:07, her hair damp and her coat buttoned to the throat. She saw him through the glass and came straight over, skipping the pleasantries. "They're not just letters," she said, voice low. "I didn't tell you before because I thought it sounded stupid." Rowan stepped back to let her under his umbrella. Go on. They were nursery rhymes, always one line, sometimes a word changed. Rain, rain, go away, come again another, but the last word was day. It was name, or stay. She shook her head. It got worse over time. She burned them, but I saw her hands shaking. How many? 6, maybe 7. She started looking over her shoulder when it rained. Said someone was following the storms. Rowan didn't answer right away. The phrase lodged in his mind, following the storms, and wouldn't let go. They parted ways, Mara heading toward the subway. Rowan lingered, then crossed to a deli on the corner. From its window, he had a wide view of the street. His coffee cooled untouched. At 11:22, movement caught his eye, a figure in a dark hooded coat, standing perfectly still across from the Quinn building. Rowan's pulse ticked up. He rose, dropping bills on the counter, and pushed through the door. But as he stepped outside, a delivery truck rolled past, blocking his view. When it cleared, the sidewalk was empty. He hurried toward the spot, scanning the crowd. The hooded figure was gone, but lying on the wet pavement, pressed into the gutter, was another plain envelope. No name, no address. Inside was a photograph of Alara again, but this time she wasn't in the alley. She was standing at her apartment window, looking down at the street. Rain slicked the glass, distorting her face. In the reflection behind her, Rowan could see himself, standing exactly where he was now. Rowan sat in his unmarked car for nearly an hour, the envelope open on the passenger seat, the photograph face down, as if that could keep it from looking at him. It wasn't just the impossibility of it, being in the image without having been there, that dug under his skin. It was the way Alara looked in the photo. She wasn't startled. She wasn't smiling. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't read, like she already knew something he didn't. Back at the precinct, he fed the photo through the scanner, running it against databases for location matches, metadata traces, anything. Nothing. No digital signature. No camera model. It was as if it had been printed from air. He started digging, not just into Alara's life, but into anyone who had ever gone missing on a rainy night in the last 20 years. By midnight, his monitor glowed with a grim pattern. 9 disappearances, all in the city, all in heavy rain. Every one of them had eerie overlaps. Victims last seen alone. Security or street footage missing minutes or hours at the time of disappearance. No signs of struggle. Families reporting strange, untraceable calls to their landlines the night before, calls from numbers that didn't exist in any registry. He clicked through the missing persons' photos one by one, their smiles frozen in decades-old pixels. All women, all ordinary enough to vanish without headlines lasting more than a week. In one case from 2004, the last witness claimed she'd seen the missing woman step into the rain and walk away with someone who wasn't there. The witness had been dismissed as unstable. Rowan was about to close his laptop when he noticed the evidence entry on that case, a torn scrap of clothing. The description, green wool, coat fabric. He stared at it for a long moment, feeling the weight of the envelope in his coat pocket. When he finally left the precinct, it was after 2 a.m. The city was slick and empty, neon signs warping in puddles. He was halfway to his apartment when he saw movement in the rear view, a shadow packing him half a block back. Rowan pulled over. The street behind him was empty. He got out, scanning the alley mouths, the parked cars. That's when he saw it, an envelope balanced carefully on the hood of his car. This one didn't contain a photograph. It held a scrap of green wool, frayed at the edges, dry as if it had never been in the rain at all. A rumble of thunder rolled over the city. Rowan looked up, and under the nearest street lamp stood the hooded figure. He moved toward it, hand near his sidearm, but as the figure stepped into the light, Rowan's breath caught. There was no face beneath the hood, just darkness. And then the rain came harder, swallowing the sound of his own footsteps.